my executive team, Vice President BCMA Brother Skandar Khan, Vice President Planning Malik Irfan, my fellow directors of this very branch, Mr. Avnit Toor, Mr. Gauri Haq, Mr. Subtaliwal, and Ms. Parveer Khandal. So welcome you all. You are under the umbrella of BCMA. Let me introduce you a little introduction of BCMA. BCMA is a unique, great organization of Muslims which cater the need of Muslims throughout the BC. And I feel honored to serve this organization, and on the same note, I feel humble and honored to welcome you all for the candidates who are running for election for the year 2021. Few of you, one of you or all of you, Allah knows best, will be sitting in the House of Commons and you will be our voice. The purpose of tonight, our gathering here, that we want that when you goes in the House of Commons, we should be heard. On my left side, you can say election day, September 20. You are loudest when you vote. We are trying our best in our community that they should vote, and they will vote. Before the actual start of program, I would call Bilal to recite the tilawat of Quran. So inshallah we can start the program.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العظيم.
So, Brother Malik, if any candidate comes, please help me out to have a seat for them. First of all, I would definitely want to thank all the candidates. That was a very squeezy schedule for you to place and to make yourself available. On behalf of my entire team, on behalf of my Muslim community, and on behalf of the Delta brand, I salute you. Thank you, Wanda, for coming tonight here. And hopefully we're going to have a wonderful evening tonight. The program tonight, the format is that we will be giving from my left NDP, here Liberal. We are waiting for Conservative if they can show up, and we have one independent candidate as well. So we will give one candidate from all parties a chance to speak about 3 to 5 minutes. In these 3 to 5 minutes, they can give their action plan, and I would definitely say on my left side, this is the coalition government, which they have enjoyed the power for the last 4 years. If they can explain a little bit that how we can vote them again. Being a management, we would not be prejudiced. We would be very, very, no role. We will give everybody equal chance to speak. The question answer, to make the level of respect maintained, we would not get any direct question from our fellow brothers. There will be a direct question come from Brother Furqan. And again, for question answering, we will give you 1 to 2 minutes to answer the question. For the housekeeping, we have the washroom facility available for both men's and the women's. And I have my team with me who can help you to go to the washroom if we need it. At the end of the session, we have a wonderful tea with the light of good snacks, and tonight hosted by the Canadian Muslim group. They have sponsored all this entertainment for tonight. I would request all of you to stay behind after that. First of all, I will ask on my left Mr. Avnit Yes, please. You can come and stage is all yours. You can use that if you are comfortable with that.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Salam to everybody here. It's not just the candidates who have a busy campaign schedule and have taken some time out to be here, and I thank them all for doing that. I also thank everybody who has come out to spend some time on this evening with us. Everybody has busy schedules, and we know over the past number of years, life has been getting tougher, it's been getting more expensive, there's a lot more pressure on working families, and so I appreciate taking the time out to be here, get engaged, listen to your candidates, learn about the platforms, and make your decisions as to who you think will best represent our community of Surrey, particularly here for myself, here in Surrey Newton. I appreciated the note about we're loudest when we vote, we're even louder when we all vote. And so it is very important that we do on Monday, September 20th, go out and vote. Newton. So why vote for us? I appreciated the note about we're loudest when we vote a little bit. We're even louder when we all candidates who are also running here. So it is very important. And then I'll talk a little bit on Monday, September 20th, go out and vote. Newton. So why vote for us? The note about we're loudest when we vote a little bit. We're even louder when we all candidates who are also running here. So it is very important work. And then I'll talk a little bit about some immigration at the Canada Border Services Agency, where I learned a lot about immigration and how broken our system has been. Following my studies at UBC, I worked for the Canadian Mental Health Association, where I was a director, and I was supporting independent living housing programs to support people who are recovering from mental illness, including youth programs right here in Surrey. And I was very proud of the fact that we were able to increase the number of spaces we had for our young people here. For the past 7 or 8 years, I've worked with undergraduate students at UBC. Here in the community, I've been active with the NDP for over 15 years, working on several provincial and federal campaigns, active with youth leadership camps, sports, and all of the other things that young people do here in Surrey. And young people do so well. We have so much talent and creativity and intelligence right here at home in Surrey, and we have to empower that. We have to support our young people in moving forward and stepping forward. And that's one of the reasons why I'm standing in this election. Some other candidates, fantastic candidates that we have, we've got Sonia Andy in Surrey Centre. Sonia is such a long time and passionate community activist. She has been embedded, enmeshed in the community. She understands the struggles of working people and is doing her best and has been doing her best for so many years to support them. This type of opportunity will allow her to continue to do that work, and we look for your support, for myself and for Sonia. Also for Raji Tour, who is also running with the NDP team and with Jagmeet Singh. Raji is an educator. She talks every day with students and with families about how we can best support our next generation. And that is what we are about. The NDP, with Jagmeet Singh, is fighting for you, every single person here. We are fighting for our families. We are fighting for our communities. Things have not been going in the right direction, and everybody knows this. I don't have to explain this to you. The NDP has shown, even with a coalition government, the results that we can bring for Canadians. We were able to ensure that we provided support for individuals during this pandemic. The Liberals wanted to provide $1,000 a month. And perhaps one of their team can explain why they thought that was appropriate for Canadians when you think about the rents and expenses that we have. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP fought to make that $2,000. The same is true for our small businesses. They felt it was appropriate to have 15% of wages covered. We said, no, that's got to be 75%. If you agree that Canadians need help, let's give them real help. Now, we want to do so much more. Let's take healthcare, for example. We are the only major country left in the world with a universal healthcare system that does not include prescription medication. That means we pay the 3rd highest fees for medication anywhere in the world. My father had a stroke a couple of years ago, and he requires lots of medication. I know what strain that places on families. I know the strain that places on our seniors. It doesn't have to be this way. And we put forward a bill in the House.
Sorry, your 5 minutes is up.
Okay, I'm going to just take your 30s. Okay. So I'll quickly share, we put forward a bill in the House, and we said, let's support Canadians with the cost of their medication. Other places do it, we can do it too. The NDP voted in favor. The Liberals and Conservatives as per usual, teamed up against Canadians. And so we have choices to make in this election. It does matter who you vote for. And we need champions who will fight for our communities, fight for our family, and fight for our next generation in this election. And I urge you to vote for the NDP on September 20th and make your vote count. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Avni. So we are missing 4 candidates. So there is a little change in the format. I will ask all the candidates now to respect the time, 3 to 5 minutes. Sonia Andi, now it's all yours. Please.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. First of all, Mazrat for being late. I was stuck in traffic. But I'm so thankful to all of you for giving me this space to talk to you, to address you, because I know that you're very involved in the political process, and you have a lot of concerns. And I'll just say a little bit about myself. I'm a mental health counselor, community activist, social worker, and I have been working in the community for the last 30 years. I'm the founder of Shakti Society and Shakti Awards, and so I hear the concerns of people on a daily basis. And I know that right now we're in crisis mode. We're dealing with several crises. The first one is affordability. We're dealing with the housing crisis, which everyone is talking about. How do you get a roof over your heads? How do you buy your first house? How do you have enough money in your pocket? And so as we deal with the housing crisis, we're also dealing with a climate crisis. You know, we don't need climate scientists anymore to tell us where we are and what risk we face and how precarious these times are. You know, whether it's forest fires, and especially I'm the candidate from Surrey Centre, and I can tell you that Central City is the hottest spot in all of Surrey, where the temperatures get exceedingly high in the summertime. And we know that we've had over 800 deaths in the summer, this summer within 3 days because of the high heat. So we cannot ignore this climate crisis. And I have to say that while we talk about climate crisis, our Prime Minister, the Liberal Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, went and spent billions of dollars in buying a pipeline for a product that will soon be obsolete as we move away from fossil fuels. And thirdly, I will say that we're dealing with a mental health and an opioid crisis. You know, right now, as a mental health worker, I notice that people are struggling with mental health, but especially in Surrey Centre, it's been years that we've been dealing with a drug crisis. And we cannot ignore that anymore. And even though there is talk of millions of dollars being invested into the community, you and I know how big this challenge is. And more than anything, I have to say that we're all struggling, we're all dealing with, and I know especially you, brothers and sisters, are talking about and worried about Islamophobia. You know, there is fear, there's hatred out there, there's racism out there, and that's unacceptable in a country like Canada. You know, just the other day, as you were celebrating Pakistan Day, I was at Hawthorne Park with some of my Pakistani sisters and friends, and they spoke about how they felt unsafe. You know, they weren't sure if they could meet in the park because they weren't sure if they would be attacked. And that's not acceptable. You know, they're going out there, meeting with friends, and yet you just don't know how unsafe you feel and how bad it might get. And that is something that we have to take a stand against. As leaders, we have to make sure that there is no room for Islamophobia. So I am committed as a social worker, as an advocate, but especially as your future leader. If I get elected, I will be fighting for you, which is something that I've done over the years. For the last 30 years, I have been working with the community without public office, without being elected, and I can promise you that if I get this seat, I will be taking your concerns, taking your voices loud and clear all the way to Ottawa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia Andi. Okay, just a reminder for all of you, as I said earlier, there will be no direct question to the candidate. On my right side, Mr. Furqan, Brother Furqan Galen is sitting. He is the panelist for collecting the question. Anyone have a question, please take a slip. We can help you to give a piece of paper and a pen. Write your question, what you're gonna have for candidate. So this is the time you definitely ask the question, and this is the reason they are here. So I think this is the time for Mr. Gauri Hag now. And yes, he is a candidate from White Rock. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Well, thank you very much. And given that we have three representatives of the Federal Liberal Party, I'll say some things and you can fill in all the blanks I leave for you. You're welcome.
Absolutely.
First issue that I want to speak to generally is that of climate change, which I think is a very important one, which reflects actually our health and what happens with our health system as well. And the climate plan that we have in place has been reviewed by the International Joint Commission and by the United Nations and has been approved as the best climate plan in the G7 countries. So that is a pretty good position. We've also been endorsed by Dr. Jacquard at Simon Fraser University, who's given us an 8 out of 10. And he's looked at the other ones and has not done as well. Mr. Weaver, who was the former leader of the Green Party, has also endorsed our climate plan and the strategies we have in place to deal with that. We're looking at protecting more old growth forests. We're going to plant 2 billion more trees. We're going to protect the waters and give safe travel within them. Affordability has already been mentioned, and that's obviously a very important issue. And affordability has 3 levels of government involved in it. The local government does the zoning and the approvals and the processes. The provincial government oversees those and puts in place that management. And the federal government has a role to play in influencing. So as a recent study just done chaired by Joy McPhail, who reported out on affordability and housing in British Columbia. That report came out about a month ago. And the report basically said, and it was reported to Chrystia Freeland, was one receiver, and the new Minister of Finance provincially received the report. And basically what they said was, we're not seeing enough cooperation happening in the 3 levels of government. We've got to find better ways to negotiate, to support, and do things. Way back when the Constitution of Canada was put together in 1867, healthcare was a doctor riding a horse somewhere, and school was a one-room schoolhouse sitting somewhere. Today, those are 2 of the very most important issues that we have. Those 2 things were given to the provinces because in the Constitution to carry out. If we were doing the Constitution today, they would be seen differently, and the federal government would have a more prevalent position around all of those. Now, the federal government has to use funding to negotiate that, just as the federal government has done on the $10 a day daycare that they negotiated and now have an agreement with 8 provinces to proceed and look at and manage that system. That has to be done more with the issues of affordability, as is pointed out in Joy McPhail's study. There was some brief discussion about the issue of racism. And I was devastated when the 4 Muslims were run over in London, Ontario, by a terrorist. And we had a meeting at Holland Park, a vigil responding to that. And I was told that there are 250 white supremacist groups in Canada. And that frightens me. And I think what's happened in terms of allowing that to happen, we've always known there have been people on the perimeter who saw the world differently. And since social media has come along, they found a way to connect. We've always had people who lived on the perimeters. Social media has now allowed them to connect in ways that they didn't have before. So now they believe they've got quantum, they've got support, and they can do things differently. We saw the Congress of the United States taken over through social media. People came from Florida and from Los Angeles and from Washington State and Massachusetts. They all got together because they felt they could do that. I believe that we have to take stronger action with respect to that. We all have to stand up for it. We also have to stand up in government to manage and support the things that are happening in that. I presented to the Surrey School Board about 4 months ago a strategy for looking at how we can be more inclusive with respect to the issues of our country. We're very proud to be a multicultural, pluralistic society. We don't believe in that old notion of a melting pot. We believe in everybody having their own. We're a salad. We've got to respect and honor and take the greatness that comes from the the many cultures we have and build on that strength and make sure that strength is a part of what is reflected in Canada as Canadians. We spend too much time talking about differences and not enough time talking about sameness. Wherever we go in the world, most people care about the same things. They care about family, they care about community, and they care about getting ahead in the world, whether it's getting ahead emotionally or psychologically or spiritually or economically. And those are the things we must celebrate and support. And I believe that our government, I believe that the Liberal Party of Canada reflects those values well and interprets those values in practices, policies, and legislation to include everyone and make our world, our country, and our world a better place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Godihar. Before I go further, I would like to thank some of our sister organizations. They are here tonight just to say the symbol of our union, symbol of strength that we are together. First of all, I would like to say, Brother Abdul Rauf, Jazakallah khair, thank you for coming tonight. Brother Jabbar, thank you for coming. Friend of Pakistan, convener, thank you for coming. Ex-President of PCA, thank you for coming. And all of you who come, Jazakallah khair, thank you very much. So let's do the balance equation, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have a 4 candidate from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Let's do the balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Let's do the balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Let's do the balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Having a dialogue balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Having a dialogue balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Having a dialogue balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Having a dialogue balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Having a dialogue balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal. Let one more candidate. Having a dialogue balance equation. One more candidate, because on my left, 2 candidates from NDP, and we have 3 of 4 candidates from Liberal.
Cases.
first priority. We know that there needs to be change in the system. We know that there are people out there in Canada right now who can't express their religion or their part of the Why is that? How can we take pride in saying that we are diverse and multicultural when we have these issues going on across the country? As an independent candidate, I've seen Canada right now the election of the young generation is again left out within political spheres. How we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic when we have social issues we care about that are not being addressed or raised. It is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation is again left out within political spheres. How we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent candidate we care about that are not being addressed or raised. My community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation is again left out within political spheres. How we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent candidate still have just that are not being addressed or raised. My community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation is parties out within that are not being addressed. How we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent still have just that are not being addressed or raised. My community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation parties out within that are not being addressed. How we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent my community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation parties out within that are not being addressed. How we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent my community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young parties out within that are not being addressed. That's why how we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent my community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation parties out within that are not being addressed. That's why how we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent my community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation parties out within that are not being addressed. That's why how we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent my community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation parties out within that are not being addressed. That's why how we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent my community, it is time we ask for new representation. I've someone who is Canada right now the election of the young generation parties out within that are not being addressed. That's why how we deserve to pride in saying that we are not only democratic as an independent my community, it is time we That's why
Before I move to the question answers format, I would like to mention one thing. Tonight, I'm really happy and really proud and humble that under this roof of BCMA, we have almost all the sister organization representatives. I would like to thank Mr. Brother Arjumant. I would like to thank Brother Rahat Rao. I would like to thank Brother Kamran Goraya. I would like to thank our trustees, Brother Bisharat Ali Sidhu, Brother Bora Sahib, and all of you. Just forgive me if I forget any name. Just to mention this is the reason, because this is a unique time tonight that all our sister organization, Masalla and cultural organization tonight here to show the solidarity that we as a Muslim in BC, we are together. Our voice is together. We want that should be heard, that our problems should be solved, for which we are struggling for long. Now I would open the format for the question answer, and I'm giving this Brother Furqan. He will bring the question which has been raised by our fellow brothers and Muslims. And every party has a chance to respond within 1 to 2 minutes. And if somebody wants to add, we will give another extra 1 minute. So inshallah, try to respect the time. And as we have another time for Salah is approaching, if we could not finish, which I don't see, we have to come back. Sorry for my...
Sorry, Mr. Gondal, we have too many functions here. We promised you 6:15 to 7:15 sharp, and that's the way we should respect, because particularly during this time, there are other people, other groups that have already scheduled meetings with us.
I'm not going to take Mr. Dhaliwal any time. This is all your time. If you're going to answer, we're going to go very fast. That's number move.
We have all the time you need.
Yes, for sure. So who can sit, where can sit.
Okay, thank you. So let's get started with the questions. I've got a bunch collected from online, from a Google form, and also what's been written here. So I'm just going to start here once again. Let's try to stick to 1 minute, one person from each party to give an answer. And then if somebody from another party wishes to respond, again, that's maybe 30 seconds. I'm just saying that in light of time. So the first question that is here is, how would you address the housing crisis? And the Liberal Party, I think, can start first.
Okay, as Zandeep hasn't had an opportunity.
You want me to go up there? Just here is fine. Okay. Assalamu alaikum to all the brothers and sisters here. I apologize. I haven't been able to introduce myself. I think we have too many candidates, so it shows you how much the Liberals love you and can attend every debate. And when it comes to the housing, I think if you look at the three platforms of the three major parties, the Conservatives basically say they'll build, I think, 500,000 or 1 million houses, but they'll do 7, 10, and 10-year mortgages, which already exists. So I don't see how they would reduce any or affordability issues. The second thing they've said is they'll do 15% of federal government lands, they'll reappropriate and make them into housing. I think the NDP also says that to some degree. I can tell you in Surrey, I know the amount of land that the federal government owns. There is no excess land. The only land is some farmland that we have in Cloverdale for experimental farming that the Ministry of Industry does. And when you repurpose that land in any which way, it takes about 10 years because we have to work with Indigenous communities in that area to first find out if there's any land claims. And so it would not help in the affordability crisis. Ours is a very practical, I think realistic, and it works on several fronts. The first part, we've already done a national housing strategy. We took 2 years to create that. Canada's first ever of its kind. It commits to $73 billion. It's already funded over $3 billion just here in British Columbia over the last few years. We've seen 1,000+ units of affordable rental housing being constructed. So that's on the affordable side. For the homeless and the most vulnerable. We said our rapid housing initiative with $2.5 billion, with Surrey has had over 100 new units already built and opened, and 250 prior. And when it comes to first-time home buyers, we have several promises that we've made. The first being that we'll allow you to do a tax-free savings account, so you can buy your first home up to $40,000. A rent-to-own program that we'll also do.
Thank you, Randeep.
Okay. Okay.
Did anybody want to respond from any of the other parties? Either Parveer or from the MP? Again, try to stick to under 1 minute. Or 30 seconds actually, sorry, that's the response.
Assalamualaikum. Parveer Handal is from the Surrey Newton Riding. So in terms of housing crisis and the skyrocketing housing prices, we have to understand, and when we look into actually purchasing a home, if we look at how many taxes we are being charged and given, and the percentages that are being applied, like for example the PTT, we start to realize how high this percentage is. So for someone already buying a home and struggling to purchase a home, we see how high of a percentage the taxes are. Apart from already of the regulated taxes, we have PTTs that are incredibly expensive. They're about a couple percentages. That means you're paying thousands and thousands of dollars more from your pocket. If we're going to be talking about affordable housing, let's start with what the already process looks like. And again, like I said earlier, it's about working with federal and provincial and municipal governments in order to regulate the housing market as well as the housing prices. And again, we understand that there's a supply and demand issue, and it is about increasing the supply for affordable housing, but that comes with infrastructure and allocating it accordingly to what land is available.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I will try to be quick here. The first thing I will share is that our Muslim community is a priority for the NDP, and we are happy to give you as much time as you would like and as you need today. In terms of the housing crisis, the same people that brought you the housing crisis are not going to be the people who are going to save you from the housing crisis. Under this Liberal government, house prices have gone up over 50%. Their candidates, for goodness sake, are the ones who are helping to further the housing unaffordability crisis. They are land developing, flipping, and speculating, and investing, and taking profits away from hardworking Canadians all across this country. There is absolutely no credibility this government can have when it comes to housing. If you want a government to take action, real meaningful action on the housing crisis, if you want different results, you've got to vote differently and vote for the people who will be your champions. And that is only the end.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go on to the next question now. The next question is to all candidates. Who will raise concerns to remove anti-Islamic bills which are part of the Canadian justice system? That was a question that came in. I'm just going to rephrase that. How will you stand up for religious freedoms in regards to Bill 21 in Quebec? Start off with the Liberal.
When it comes to religious freedoms, as I earlier said, when it comes to a religion, in fact, time and time again, he has come out, and when it comes to charter rights and freedoms, individual rights are enshrined in our constitution through charter rights and freedoms. In fact, this bill, we are working on this, and the leader has made it very clear that if we need to take it to the higher courts, we will, and to defend the minority rights, not only the Muslim, in fact, any minority, whether Sikh, Hindus, Muslims, or Jewish, because everyone has articles of faith that goes with them.
1 second. Talwa
Before we move to the next question, I would definitely request everyone to stay behind for the refreshment, as these brothers CMMC, who are the exclusive sponsorship for refreshment for you, stay behind. After Maghrib, inshallah, we serve very tasty refreshments.
So we don't have time to wait when this bill is already being proposed within Quebec and it is being talked about incredibly, and it is concerning because, again, like we were saying, this is our freedom of right to express our religion and wear religious articles that are part of our culture. and it is part of our identity, so have that stripped away. And the fact that these are public servants who work within our community tremendously hard, are holding social roles to help the community, but then are being jeopardized and being placed in positions where they don't have the freedom to choose what they're allowed to wear and what they aren't allowed to wear. So that is the issue, because as Canadians, again, we talk about multiculturalism and diversity, but we have these bills proposed and are being proposed and being implemented, and we have to take a stand. We have to go against these laws. We have to stand up for what is right, and it's not about waiting. We don't have time to wait when this has already been talked about. We know Bill C-21 will be in there soon. So again, we need to stay with our public servants who are working incredibly hard through the COVID pandemic, on the front lines, for our community, for our society.
Thank you. From the NDP.
Thank you very much for that question. I think racism, systemic racism, is a huge issue across the board, across the country. And I can tell you one thing, that Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have been champions in fighting racism, calling out systemic racism. In fact, you might recall that when he called out systemic racism in the RCMP, he was kicked out of Parliament for naming racism. That is what true leadership looks like, where you have the courage to stand up and speak for what is right. And so we can assure you that we are beyond just saying the right things and saying pretty words. We are about action. And so when we're talking about racism, we know how it impacts all of us as people of color. And that is why we will take a strong stand and not just talk about this, but we'll make sure that the fear and the horror that people have faced, especially in the Muslim community, that cannot happen, that cannot continue in this country. And so we will take a strong stand, and we follow our leader who has been the strongest champion in fighting systemic racism. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the next question.
So we got some concern from our fellow brothers that they need a direct question. For the two reasons we did not entertain the direct question. One, sometimes these are our guests, regardless. Second, this is a masjid. We have seen in the past the level of respect and the level of masjid is always gone, so there is no direct question. Second is the time constraint. So anybody have a question? After question, please write the question. It will be asked to the candidate.
Okay, the next question is directed to Sukhali. What are 3 things you have done for the Muslim community in the past 10 years, other than attending events and putting out statements?
Certainly, that's an excellent question you asked. The first thing what I did for the Muslim community, I can tell you I was not even in politics when they started to build this masjid. I was with the Muslim community helping Hashmat Ali at that time, the chairperson, and I take a pride from that day till today. I'm with the Muslim community. Not only this, in fact, there's another masjid. The president is sitting here, that they are building on 100 and around 128th Street. I'm the one actually who went to the site with the Muslim community. I'm the one who championed that to make sure that that masjid comes here locally in Surrey. On the at national level, when the bill came, M103 on Islamophobia, I proudly stood in the House of Commons to support that, to acknowledge Islamophobia and to deal with it. Not only this, in fact, all my friends, we advocated it, and that is why we see $20 million fund is being put into to deal with Islamophobia. These are the type of things that I have done, and I will continue to do that.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Anybody want to speak up? 30 seconds from either Parveer or NDP.
But I mean,
Sure, I can respond. Thank you so much for that question. It's so important that we have a member of parliament in this community, in this constituency of Newton, that goes to work, not just functions. And we need action, not just talk. And I'm not here to take credit for anybody else's work either. We'll hear the Liberal candidates talk about Bill 103. I can tell you, after that bill was passed, almost 0 recommendations that emerged from the report out of that bill have actually been acted upon.
$50 million and a conference with the leader. That happened if just a talk from the NDP can get you all the talk, but when it comes to having action, there's nothing happening from this party.
The candidate, if there is no cross answering, I would humbly request no cross answering a question.
Then the question was to
There should
me.
be respect.
No, but then the question was to me.
It can come back to you. It can come back to you. You can add more, but if it's no cross question, that's better.
Okay, no,
Please go ahead.
no interruptions. I'd like to see that kind of passion in the House of Commons when we're fighting for the rights of our minorities. I can give you another example. When there was a bill put forward in the House of Commons that was to condemn the BDS movement here in Canada, these two Liberal members voted to condemn the BDS movement here in Canada. Were they thinking of you? Were they thinking of our community? Or were they betraying your trust? All NDP members of Parliament voted against that motion because it was the right thing to do. And then we have the right action.
Okay. Brother Furqan, we want to add something again.
Actually, not picking on you, but because you've got to leave, this next question is also directed towards you, and you can add to that.
Yeah, you can add. But
So the question again to Sikh Paliwal, what do Liberals mean by a feminist foreign policy? Well, Canada is the second largest arms supplier in the Middle East.
I mean, when it comes to talking about the feminist policy, let's talk about at home. When it comes to gender equality, it is the Liberal Party that brought an equal number of women into the ministry. When it comes to $10 in daycare, it is empowering women, is giving women the right to go to work and giving them the freedom to go to work and giving them opportunities. And when it comes to even on an international level, we have given resources to small nations. I was in Small Island, where there were women that were given training to empower themselves. When it comes to reproductive rights, we are the ones that brought in not only the legislation, but in fact put resources into that to deal with women empowerment, whether it's at home here or on an international scene. And not only that, in fact, I sit on the International Trade Committee and Radeep sits on that too. Every legislation, every agreement that we form, we make sure the side environment, the women and the LGBTQ communities, their rights are taken care of.
Thank you for that answer. And any rebuttal from
Right here.
our viewer? Okay, 30 seconds for the rebuttal.
We want to talk about women empowerment, then let's talk about the fact that since the global pandemic started within Surrey, there has been an increase in 33% of domestic violence against women. There has been a 112% increase in homicide rates for women suffering from domestic violence within their houses that don't have the sufficient resources and organizations to go to and get help. And why that is because these organizations, from a report I read, reported in 2019, for the last 13 years have been saying we need more provincial and more federal funding so these organizations that house women who are struggling, who are experiencing domestic violence, family violence, can go and seek shelter too. If we want to talk about female empowerment, then tell me why that those homicide rates are so high within Surrey. Why are the domestic violence rates so high within our riding? And if we want to refine female empowerment to talking about how we're providing daycare because they are somehow restricted to misogynistic system that says that they can only take care of children and that's why we're empowering, that's not what female empowerment is. It's about eradicating misogyny in our system and helping an allyship with the two LGBTQ+, and that begins with actually acknowledging that.
I would like to say that what has happened in the Canadian Army, in the Canadian Armed Forces, there have been reports of sexual assault cases for years. And our minister, our defense minister, Mr. Dharti, sat with that report and no action was taken. And the action that has been taken is that they have ordered a review of the review. So that is the kind of feminist policies that the Liberal government espouses. When we're talking about the murdered, missing and Indigenous women, there have been reports, but what kind of action has been taken by this government? We talked about their cabinet, which was a personal cabinet. We know that 3 prominent women from that cabinet left under very unhappy, uncertain circumstances, where they were almost driven out. We know that 3 members of the cabinet were being less than the other members of the Liberal cabinet. So when we're talking about feminism, when we're talking about equality, we really need to look at action. Once again, a lot of pretty words, a lot of talk, but when we're talking about results, very little to see from that.
How many questions do you have lost?
If you allow, there is a related to this.
1 second. Can I have
Canadian general who has been एक second एक बार बहुत जरूरी है बहुत जरूरी है
Okay, brother. No direct question.
This is for everyone, please. Nobody can question, please.
Respect the formulation. Respect, write your questions. Okay, one other thing. I know the timing, and we were aware of this timing issue, but we have some issue because the congregation's salat timing is fixed.
So we don't have time to wait
So,
when this bill is ready.
these are your voters.
Incredibly, and it is
You need them as they want to ask you. I would request if somebody have a very no excuse, they can leave, and if you want to sit, we might sit to answer those questions after Maghrib Salah. What is your opinion? Need time? Or otherwise we're going to conclude.
We will stay. We will stay.
No, I need these people.
I want everyone to know that we're happy to stay.
But thing is, Mr. Gandhar, respectfully, I would like to say something. Can you give me?
Okay,
Respectfully, I want to tell you that before, when we committed an hour with you, but there are other people that were meeting right after this. They're also our voters. They also want to have a dialogue. We've given you 1 hour, and I was here on time, and we will leave on time, and that is the way. Yeah. Right.
Okay, so exactly.
Because we have other events.
Exactly, as per the time given, we respect our words. Conclusion. We cannot conclude today's debate. Who is the winner or who is the loser? But what we can say, these people matters to anybody. Matter to you. We will be still asking you again. One election is not the last election. If you make a promise with us, we will keep asking you where the promise. Regardless, if she comes as an MP, if Mr. Dhali will come as an MP, or Mr. Avni come as an MP. Our concern is our voices. If it's not been heard, we will be keep screaming that this is our issues, it should be listened. We respect the time. Thank you very much for coming. And we don't have much time for refreshment, but inshallah after Maghrib, our guests stay. We definitely will have a little informal chat there at the downstairs, so you can keep sitting here. We will pray Maghrib and come back. The conclusion is that today the debate is done because we respect the time that we go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well done. There's lots of questions here. I'd like to make a request. If I compile these questions and forward them to all of you, and you provide an answer within 24 hours. So we can send the questions to their email and they can respond to